Seeing none. Right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the West Covina Planning Commission for April 25th, 2023 to order. We'll now take a moment for silent prayer or meditation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Vice Chair Gutierrez. Please rise.
Okay, put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Paulina, roll call, please.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Commissioner Heng?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Present.
Commissioner Becerra?
Here.
Vice Chair Gutierrez?
Here.
Chair Lewis?
Here. All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes. Tonight we have minutes from the regular meeting from April 11th, 2023. Do we have any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as presented. Moving on to oral communications. Now is for the time for anyone to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. We do have one speaker card. Kathy Navarro, will you please come forward?
Good evening. I read the internet wrong. I was thinking it was council meeting tonight, but I'm still going to give you my spiel anyway. I'm Kathy Navarro. This is Ken Dyson and Roberta Trimble. I'm on the board of Project 2911. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Are you? Wonderful. Last year, several of this council came to our dinner auction. And so we had a wonderful turnout, and I personally am acquainted with a few of the council members. Why I came today was to bring you up to date what our facility is doing. And also I want to thank the city, I want to thank the council, I want to thank you also, because you're part of the planning, I'm sure, that goes into what you allow for charities or that you feel is an important charity to donate to. Well, in 2020, see, what we do is we provide food enough for 4 people in a family. And this food consists of, I'll just go through this quickly, bread, milk, desserts, meat, eggs, vegetables, all fresh vegetables, some canned. We box it up and we have them meet in the parking lot where we're able to use the facility. Illuminate Church has allowed us to use the facility. We do pay them a small stipend for the use of the property. They park in the parking lot because the city of Covina does not want us to allow people in the building because of COVID-29. We've had to have people stay in their car. We have the boxes ready to load into their car as they drive from the parking lot around 2nd Street and in front of the Illuminate facility. We put it in their trunk and they're off. So in 2020, when we had COVID, we served 37,000 people. And in 2021, we served 32,000. It dropped a little, which we were surprised. But now the numbers are up again. We're up to around 40,000 people that we served last year. And as of today, we are at 13,000. So the numbers are still there. We still have a great need. We're an all-volunteer group. Nobody is paid. And that's the amazing thing about our our donations. We're there to help people. We want them to have hope. We want them to have dignity. A lot of them come and they've got terrific stories to tell. Even Roberta has, everybody here has probably had a hardship at one time. And where do you go? What do you turn to? Well, you go and you apply for some assistance through the government, locally. So when they hear about us, they come, and we try to make them feel like they're welcome, like they're providing for their family. Not that it's an insulting thing, but it's a necessary thing, and we're happy that we can do this. In 2022, we have been wrestling with the idea of trying to bring people in, but we still can't do that. For some reason, it's not working out. Because we've got it so well organized, we're going to keep people in their car and passing in front, and we'll put the food in their car. I'm hoping that we'll have an open house in June, and our dinner auction, which is either a luncheon or an evening event, we'll be giving out invitations, and we hope that you would come at least to the open house. We have a free gift for everybody who comes. And I think that you'll enjoy it, and a lot, some sort of a little snack. Won't call it a big dinner. It's just, and so I truly, again, want to thank you for, if it wasn't for you and for your generosity, because West Covina has been one of the biggest donors to us, we are so thankful. Even though it's in Covina, Covina's lagging. I mean, we're wrestling with Covina. We're having a little competition with them. And council, they all laugh at that. They all think it's funny, but I don't think Covina thinks it's very funny. But anyway, I do want to thank you. Oh, am I out of time? Okay. Anyway, that's why I'm here. I just want to thank you and bring it to your attention. I'll be back next week when the council's here, and maybe talk a little faster or a little bit more organized. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on an item which is not on the agenda this evening? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to the public hearing for this evening. Item number 2, Code Amendment number 23-02, CEQA exemption. The applicant is Mohsen Karimi. Let's see. Paulina, who will present the staff report?
Our planning manager, Joanne Burns, will be providing the presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and also members of the public. The objective of the proposed code amendment is to allow for beer and wine sales at service stations through a conditional use permit process. This item has been considered or reviewed by both the Planning Commission and the City Council several times throughout the years. In 2008, it was initiated by the City Council, but then was abandoned. In 2010, it was initiated by the Planning Commission, but later on, the Planning Commission had rescinded the code amendment initiation. And in 2018, it was initiated by the Planning Commission and reviewed, but was not adopted by the City Council. And in 2020, it was initiated by the City Council. It went through Planning Commission hearing and City Council hearing, but no action was taken. There are 3 different code sections in the city's municipal code that addresses alcohol sales being prohibited in service stations. So if this code amendment was to go through and as written in a draft ordinance, there would be cross references to these sections. Currently, the West Covina Municipal Code does not allow the alcohol sales at service stations, and all other off-sale uses are allowed through the administrative use permit process. I just want to note that the words off-sale is what the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control uses to describe off-site sales for off-site consumption of alcoholic beverages. As proposed by Mr. Karimi, the draft code amendment would only allow for sales of beer and wine, and it would not allow for distilled spirits. The entire site is required to comply with current code standards in order to qualify for the conditional use permit application. On the projector are the contents of what's going to be required if the sales of beer and wine would be allowed through the conditional use permit process within service stations. It would be limited to 10%. The sale of beer and wine in quantities fewer than 3 containers, or the distributors' intended resale units would be limited to these, and also we would require the installation of a CCTV system. These are the additional requirements that is in place that's being proposed in the draft code amendment, in addition to those that are state required. And the items listed are the typical state required conditions for selling beer and wine in service stations. They would not be allowed to have a beer and wine within 5 feet of the cash register. Advertising is prohibited. They'd have to ask for ID. No payphones. They can't be sold in ice tubs. No video games or video entertainment systems. And signage would have to be permitted, saying that beer and wine can be consumed on site, and they would have to sell beer and wine for individuals over 21 years old. I have some statistical information pertaining to the city on the projector. Currently, there are 25 liquor stores, convenience stores, or mini marts. We had lumped all these types of business together with active off-sale alcohol licenses within the city. There are 21 supermarket, pharmacies, or department stores with active off-sale licenses for a total of 46. And as far as gasoline stations are concerned, the gasoline stations all gasoline stations in the city have convenience stores, and there are 20 gasoline stations in the city with active business licenses. Today I had received 2 emails, one from Mr. Herb Redholz, and he sent an email in support of the proposed code amendment, and another email was received and was sent by Mr. Robert Torres against the proposed code amendment, and both emails have been forwarded to the Planning Commission, and also copies of those emails have been printed out for the Planning Commission as well. If the Planning Commission has any other questions, staff is available to answer. The recommendation is for the Planning Commission to consider the draft code amendment.
Thank you. Does any member of the Planning Commission have any questions for staff at this point?
Not at this time.
Does the code currently allow any of the gas stations, or is this something citywide that at this point is not allowed? No alcohol beverages, the sale of any alcohol beverages. Is that correct?
The proposed code amendment would be citywide. Currently, the city does not allow gas stations to sell beer and wine or any type of alcohol.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hang. Any questions right now? I have a few questions. Was there any survey of whether or not surrounding cities have similar ordinances banning gas stations from selling beer and wine?
Most surrounding cities do allow the sales of beer and wine within service stations or gas stations. There are approximately less than a handful in the area that does not allow for it.
Any adjoining cities?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there a reason why we've never have allowed it in the past?
I believe several years ago, when ABC came into play, the cities that had prohibitions in the code that prevented alcohol sales in service stations were allowed to keep that prohibition. But if you didn't have something in place, you would not be able to add the same prohibition. So we're, I guess, in short, grandfathered in.
Are there any sites in existence that still fall under the grandfathered provision?
I used to work for the city of La Cañada, Flores, and they do not allow sales of beer and wine in gasoline stations. And I know that for a fact. And I believe there's one city in Orange County that does not allow for alcohol sales in gas stations. I don't remember off the top of my head what city that is.
What I was trying to get at is within this city, when this city banned gas stations from selling beer and wine, are there any service stations still in existence that have the ability to sell beer and wine currently?
No.
Okay. And just a couple of questions on, do we have any existing data just going into this with regard to the number of alcohol-related citations like drinking in public that our police department is handing out on an annual basis?
We don't have that on hand right now.
I have a question.
And then with regard to the verification of CCTV being in use, who's responsible for that under this proposed code amendment?
It was included in Mr. Karimi's letter to have a camera system.
Okay, who is responsible for making sure that is in place at all times? If
this was to come into place and a conditional use permit was required and it was approved by the Planning Commission, then as part of the process, staff would go out to make sure that the CCTV is installed prior to letting ABC know that it's okay to issue the license.
Okay. My only question, I just want to make sure that if something like this is implemented, we would have the technical expertise to ensure that, one, it's in existence, that the cameras are actually recording things. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little unclear as to how that's going to be enforced. Let's see.
The police department for other projects, the police department has standard conditions regarding the requirement of a CCTV system, and as part of the conditional use permit process, that typically is adopted as is included as a condition in addition to this particular code requirement. So the language in that is very specific.
Okay. And do we have any knowledge whether or not PD is regularly enforcing these types of provisions in our code?
I don't believe they have somebody in the police department that inspects regularly, but I do know that if an incident was to happen, PD obtains information from business owners or people in the neighborhood with camera systems. But I don't believe that anybody actually goes out there periodically. But that if this is approved and a conditional use permit is applied for and approved, those particulars can be included in the conditions of approval. Whether or not the Planning Commission would require staff to monitor the particular business in an annual basis or every couple of years, whichever the Planning Commission desires at that time.
I have a question. Are you asking for monitoring of that system or making sure that it gets installed?
Well, obviously, making sure, one, it's installed if it doesn't exist, and then two, the version that I read said that there needed to be consistent recording, is my understanding, of what was going on site, and that it was a very broad in terms of coverage via camera angles, is my understanding, as I read the proposed code amendment. So I'm just trying to figure out, is this something that we're actually going to enforce, or we're just going to sort of, take it on faith kind of thing? I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, as Joanne was trying to indicate, if it's a condition of approval, then we do have to, before we final or sign off, staff does have to go and make sure that those conditions are met. So that as far as it being installed, as far as an annual maintenance and having PD, we'd have to talk with our police department. I'm not sure how that would work, just because then it becomes a maintenance issue more than installation required by the conditional use permit.
Right, and ultimately that's the problem. I mean, we have a relatively small bureaucracy in West Covina, so it's very difficult for us to impose all of these additional standards on things and then expect that they're going to be enforced on any kind of regularity. That's the concern that I have. So obviously that is part of the proposed amendment, and ultimately I want to make sure that if it is part of a proposed amendment that is ultimately approved, that it's something that we can have a reasonable expectation that it would actually be enforced, because otherwise what's the point? So, Vice Chair Gutierrez.
Yeah, and I will concur with that too, because I believe that there's a lot of information missing on the enforcement part, that if the city was to, even though, the voters I've spoken to, which were many, were against any idea of this, but I believe that if an average household or a voter was to be okay with this, I think it has to address the risk and then the security issues and the policing abilities, the code enforcement abilities, the ability for code enforcement to inspect the business on the spot without prior notice. I believe it has to specify if the police department will have 24/7 access to those CCTV cameras. Like I believe in the city of Bowen Park, I think they have. I believe their police department has access from their own police station to access the cameras into the marijuana dispensaries that Bowen Park has, the cultivation locations. So I know there's different regulations and policies that can be put in place for something like this. And hopefully in the future, those steps can be taken. And do we do any research regards to the sales tax that will be generated and how it will benefit the community and what funding, where the money will be going to if generated and so forth?
That was not part of the information included in the report.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now.
Any other questions?
Yes, we've received, thank you, Joanne, for the information and emails from residents. There was an email that had quite a bit of information, and thank you West Covina resident Robert Torres, I believe his name is. Is there any validity to the increased crime and alcohol-related incidences where there would be at those specific, at those gas stations, which there already may be at the 7-Eleven and other liquor stores, but would that increase in crime in those areas?
Sorry. So you wanted to know?
I mean, do we have any data of other cities and,
Not data from other cities. I know that in the past, and
no, we have nothing to compare it with, but is there any, is this information, what I was reading was very interesting. I mean, we look at this from all angles. We're also residents here, and we're just representing other residents. So I'm just wanted to know what that would be, if that information is indeed correct.
the one that was provided by Mr. Tor. We got it this afternoon, so I can't speak to whether that's accurate or not. I know that some of it's from LA County Health Department, so we'd have to take a little deeper look into where that information was obtained from.
Any other questions?
I guess I have one. Looking at the map, I think, I'm not sure who sent this, Robert Torres again. Looking at the map on the last page, it seems like the majority of the gas stations is more toward the northwest of our city. If you look at the last page, that would be the last page, the thick package that we got. So it seems like the 20 gas stations or so that we have within our city, it seems like majority of that was somehow it's more toward the northwest of our city. It's very concentrated in that section of our city. So I'm a little bit concerned about that as well. I mean, obviously we can't do anything regarding the existing locations currently, but that will impact that sections of our city. So
there are 46 right now sites that sell the alcohol. With the existing gas stations, how many would that add?
So I think it is a total of 46.
46? It would be a total? Okay. I thought there was currently 46.
There's currently 46. There's 20 gas stations. Assuming that all gas stations are apply for conditional use permit and are approved for conditional use permits, then that would make that 66.
All right, any further questions for staff? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and call forward the applicant. Mohsen Karimi, please come forward. I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohsen Karimi. I have my location on 246 North Citrus in West Covina. I've been serving the community for over 4 decades, 43 years almost, in the same location. And before the service station was there to help the people with the car problem. Now it's totally changed towards the market. It's not the gas station. It's really, is it convenient store. That's why we're going towards to satisfy our community and my consumer. That's why we're trying to get the beer and wine license to make more convenience for my consumers, my customers. That's why we are applying and trying to justify guys willing to do that, change the amendment in the city for a beer and wine license. That's what we are applying for. Mostly, the gas station, there's no more car repairs. Most of them, and you have a total of 20 gas stations in the city, but probably if it by city requirement and the convenience store only probably have 3 or 4, maximum 5 gas stations probably could be able to get the beer and wine because you have to have enough parking space and you have to have enough storage. Your store has to be big enough for selling beer and wine. I don't think all of them. I know she said most of the gas stations on the east side of a city, which is she is right. Is most of them around the 10 by 4 or 5 of them right by the 10 and the Azusa. But the only 2 of them, maybe 2, the max going to be able, if the storage fit required, can get the beer and wine. Which is me is going to be third. But I don't think the rest of them is they call it island marketer, which is only a place to sell gas, and barely they can't even feed anything in there. That's what I'm here to apply. See if you can help me out to get to help my consumer better and serve the community. I've been serving the community over 43 years, and I have a great location. I don't know you ever been in my location. It's very clean and neat, and we help the community, and it's going to be extra income for the city too because I'm right on the border of Covina and West Covina. Mm-hmm. I can get part of the business towards West Covina by get beer and wine license. Because my cross the street is Covina, I'm West Covina. I'm south of the Workman, and they are north. And anyway, the gas station these days is that a lot of people, they want to get out, after work, they want to stop by there, get gas, or have a car wash to wash their car and get their needs and go back home and rest. That's what we're here to help. You guys help, if I appreciate it, go for it, and I'm here to serve the community. I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant at this time? I have a quick question pertaining to the unfortunate situation that I know is an issue of public concern that's frankly statewide, and that's the issue of homelessness and vagrancy.
We have this issue already, but we're just trying to get the best out of it. But I barely, if you see my record, we just very rare. I just bothered it. Even if you have sometimes is it really to the point. Some homeless come over there and try to destroy. It doesn't matter what you sell. I had a lady, believe it or not, the other day. She come over there, open the can of drink, and you can't even touch it. I just very politely say, "How can I help you?" And opening the sandwich, eat it, throw it in the trash, right on the front of me. I just this is the thing, is part of the business. I never, I know if I call the police. It takes 45 minutes. We tell them it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, sometimes take 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. But I still deal with it. We let her go. We don't she destroy everything, whatever. It can be after for 20 minutes, everything clean, go back. And we all deal with it every night, every day, believe it or not. And I was the last thing we had with the chief of police. He says it's going to be any difference as far as selling alcohol in the gas station or the thing. Mr. Bell says no difference, so far. But I don't know. A lot of people say maybe it's it's going to be more, unsafe for a consumer. I have most of the gas station. If you have enough store capacity, they have 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 people at the time to work in. And we're dealing with it every day. I don't think that's going to be issue as far as, and beside that, we don't sell single. It's going to be minimum 3 package, and it doesn't matter. You just next in two block, not even 50 feet away from me, is it another store? They can go buy there and drink. Doesn't matter where they buy it. Bevmo is only 200 feet away from me. Amazon is going to open on a Garvey and Citrus, and across the street is a bar. Is this a part of the community? You have to know the only reason we're just trying to do that is just a customer convenience. It's a convenient store, and it's just you're not looking for a hard ass car. We are looking for a beer and wine, which is a lot of people. They buy it, go home, open it up, then watch TV and watch their game, whatever they like to. But it's mainly a convenient store. I don't think there's going to be any issue as far as being unsafe. This is a gas station is not the repair station anymore. It's all convenient store, and we're just trying to make the consumer easier to go back home and rest.
Just I didn't get a chance to ask my question, but what I wanted to just sort of impress upon you was whether or not you thought about in presenting this to us. We have obviously this is a conditional use permit process. So if this passes tonight, and let's say ultimately City Council decides to pass it, then at that point in time, you would have to come back to City Council, request a conditional use permit, right?
Yes.
What I'm trying to gauge is what would the standards be under the conditional use permit? Would something like increased criminal activity as not seeing an increase in criminal activity or alcohol related criminal activity be something that we should consider including as one of the conditions of approval or the maintenance of a conditional use permit or something like that? Or do you believe that's too onerous?
There some kind of a condition. If whoever meet that condition, as far as the safety goes, we're all for it. We are not here to just avoid anything. Whatever you put the condition on that, and to get in that permit, or you just go for it. Whoever is the applicant will be able to do it, just like a lot of things, if you need a special equipment. I have a 24-hour, we are open 24 hours, first of all. Second, we have all the monitoring system. A lot of times the police department, they have issue. They come to us, somebody has a stolen car. We go through our system, we get the CD and give it to them. But if it's any other thing connected to straight to like a flood camera, if they want to get flood camera, we go for it. This is something, if the city require, we're willing to do it. Whoever it doesn't do it, it doesn't get it. That's the thing is, if we are here to stay with in the condition of whatever the city require. We are not going to just do things our own. Whatever you guys the condition put, you just whoever applicable is going to go for it. If not, it's going to be rejected. But as far as the safety, just like anything else, we don't know. It has upside and it has downside too. But this is something you never know until try. But right now, we are a very safe community. I've been in that corner for 43 years. 43 years. I had only 2 incidents happen to 3. It's a very safe community, and we are just trying to make the safe environment too for our consumer. And at the same time, we have a lot of convenience. Easy to say, but the gas station go through a lot to make the customer happy, especially the one is towards the freeway. We do a lot. Everybody needs anything to just go to gas station. I have to have one guy to just clean all day for a consumer. The people think it's easy to run the business, but it's not. But this is a part of it too. Things we have to deal with it, we deal with it. But hope is going to be, we try to get the best out of it and make it safe environmental for community, you know. But if they put the police department put any requirement, we go for it. If the city put any requirement, we go for it. We're just here to make it more easy for consumer. You know, a lot of people think, you know, because of the money, but, you know, it's a part of the business. That's it, you know. There's a lot of issues, but you guys have to be kind enough to help me out to go for it, you know.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
I just wanted to ask, so
Sarah?
obviously you're doing this to increase sales for your business, correct?
Yeah, it's going to increase for sure, but the city going to get part of it too. You get the taxes. Taxes going to be helping the city too. You know, the gas station is the most source of income for the city. Used to be a card, you know, the new card. Now is a gas station because you get the percentage of every gallon I do.
Well, that's great. What percentage do you think it would increase?
So, my percentage probably is going to be in at least 20 to 30%.
So it's a big deal for you, definitely.
Well, it's not a big deal. It's not. I never think about the big deal. I have up to 6 gas stations, but the thing is that money is not involved here to be increasing. But my main thing, the convenience.
You have other gas stations,
I
so
used to have up to 6.
okay.
Yeah.
Did they have alcohol sales?
Yes.
Okay, so you
They
know
are in
what the
different
difference
cities.
is.
They are in different
It's-
cities. In Azusa and I have in these are the one I built before, but now I'm just trying. Cut it down from my activities. But I used to in Azusa. I built 2 in Azusa and built 1 in San Dimas and 1 in Covina, and it still have. The one is 2 in West Covina, which is one of them is not required. That's my partner has it, but one of them is still has a bay, which is a car repair. It doesn't have enough, the storage a space to sell the beer, and one is still has a repair shop. It's different company has a different requirement. You know, some company Chevron, I have a Chevron. Chevron got totally out of the repair business in California. It's part of the requirement. There is no car repairs in any Chevron station. You don't see no Chevron station, but still, Unocal does it. Excuse me, Shell does it. Arco does it, but not Chevron anymore.
30% is a big increase, though. That's good incentive to be here. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you guys' time. Have a wonderful day.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to speakers who are in favor of item number 2. First, Sue Aguino.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. I wanted to bring up a couple things, and I am for Mr. Karimi and to be able to, and the other gas stations to be able to have the opportunity to sell the beer and wine at their establishments. I just want to say, first off, some of the questions that you had about the crime maybe that would be around a gas station if the alcohol was, or the homelessness, or what kind of environment that would bring. I don't know that that's such a fair question anymore, because in that same area, you have Target, you have Walmart, you have Whole Foods, you have Bevmo, and you have Chili's, you have BJ's, and you have Fridays that sell to-go alcohol. So to say that these people, probably that the gas, just because there's a gas station, that's going to bring a worse environment because of the sale of beer and wine that these people do too. I don't know that I'll just say that for that. He's gone through this process quite a few times. And there was always other questions as to, the alcohol around the schools, or was it going to be around there? There's so many examples of alcohol that is sold in establishments in the city of West Covina, where it almost doesn't even seem fair to hold these gas stations to not be able to be in the same process. I mean, you have drive-through dairies that sell alcohol. You have ranch markets that sell alcohol. You have, like I said, the Bevmos and the Targets and the Chili's. You have a Jug and Jigger liquor store that is, the Jug and Jigger liquor store that's on this Garvey and Citrus. You literally could go to the 76 station, put $20 in your tank, put the tank, walk around, grab a beer, and come back before the $20 is in your tank. It's that accessible. And I mean, that's just the life that we live in now. And I'm not saying, you know, that is just how it's so accessible. And for it not to be available, or the opportunity for him as a business owner or other business owners that have gas station establishments, and the requirements that they have to be able to sell this product, I mean, is the storage, is, you know, the employees and all the guidelines that they have to have. I mean, we read them, there's a lot. And he's jumped through this hoop 4 or 5 times. You saw how many times that it's come, it was approved, it was stopped, it was stalled, it was non-answered, COVID came, and then now here he is back again. It just seems to me like in the process that's been going on, I mean, I believe that the last time it got passed 5-0, and then it got sent to city. And then the city said, oh, COVID came up, we didn't have the staff to do a staff report. So then that held it back. And then there was other things that came and held it back. And it's just not fair to take one single business person to say there's too many alcohol places to be sold in the city of West Covina. But you know what? There's a lot of burrito places to go. There's a lot of attorneys to go to just to say, you know what? There's too many attorneys in the city of West Covina. Maybe we just can't let you have your license here. Or we can't have you open up a burrito shop because there's 4 down the street. It's just handcuffing a business owner is not fair. And the city of West Covina, I think, has been doing it. And for gas stations, and like I said, I don't think it's fair. And I did do some research, and city of West Covina is the only one in the San Gabriel Valley that does not. I mean, we can go to Hacienda and Francisquito. You can be pumping gas at the Sunshine Market and buy beer right there and go 2 blocks and you're in West Covina. We are all one step away from each other. Covina has it, La Puente has it, Baldwin Park has it, but West Covina can't. A West Covina business owner can't. And it will bring, your sales tax will bring you revenue from it. And I know people snicker and laugh and think that it's a funny thing that that's brought up, but it's not. I would just really like that you would consider everything that's involved in this and grant him the opportunity to be the business owner that he has been for 40 years and supporting our community, supporting our schools. And he's been a good businessman. I just hope that you would give him that consideration. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Jeff Aguino.
Boy, some people get some dirty looks. Hi, good evening. Jeff Agino. I've been born here, raised here. I guess I'm feeling pretty old now because when a gas station was a gas station, you went and you serviced your car there and you bought your oil and your gas and that was about it. Maybe a soda pop out of the machine outside. Now these gas stations are considered convenience stores. And the reason why it's a convenience store is so you can buy things at a convenience store. And handcuffing these convenience stores from selling alcohol now just makes no sense at all, especially when I consider and I hear the stories about how this all came about, how a gas station was not allowed to sell beer and wine. It seems actually ridiculous. And the simple fact, too, is that, I mean, you're worried about crime and everything. I mean, hell, I watch the 7-Eleven get hijacked by the skaters almost every night. But nobody's complaining about the 7-Eleven right next to the skate shop. I mean, the skate park. But every day something like this comes up that everybody's going to make it, oh, one more gas station is going, or one more convenience store is going to be a problem. So really, seriously, I think you're just making it harder for a person to do business in the city of West Covina. And the city of West Covina needs to get back in the groove and let people do their business in a good manner so that they can improve themselves and improve the businesses. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of item number 2? Seeing none, we'll go to those against. Angie Gillingham.
Let me put my glasses on. We residents have come up here at least 4 occasions to the planning commission meeting, and city council to oppose this idea. I supported and collected signatures with a resident named Forrest Wilkins many years ago. I believe close to 800 signatures, which the city has in its possession. Postcards were distributed to the residents. All agreed, do not permit alcohol to be sold at these types of businesses. Recently, as far as May 2021, a young adult female was driving down Hollenbeck Avenue. She's a Glendora resident. She was driving south on Hollenbeck to pick up her sister who was visiting a friend in our city. She stopped at the 4-way stop sign on Vine Street to proceeded en route when a car with 4 young men who were found to be drinking ran the stop sign and T-boned her car. She died instantly. I'm sure these stories are in every part of our city. This is just the one I know about in my area. There is not a need for another type of location that sells alcohol. You have the numbers there. In fact, Mr. Carmini has many gas stations, as he says, 6 of them, that he will profit greatly, not only in our city, but other cities. One mentioned, he mentioned the one on Workman and Citrus. There is a Sprouts, Walmart, Target, and Bevmo, all within walking distance from his station. If alcohol is needed, you can walk to them and get them. Soon there will be an Amazon market, as he stated, which will most likely sell alcohol across the street from his station. In our city, densely built developments are popping up all through our city. This will bring more cars on our streets, yet we don't have the enforcement there on our streets to protect our residents. I will also say that residents' safety should be the priority of you guys and our city council. And lastly, Mr. Carmini has been very generous in giving campaign money to former council, current council, and candidates who ran in the last election who did or did not win. So he's been very generous to people in campaigns. And he does have a nice gas station, and it should remain that way. And he has been a good business owner, but we don't need to have him make even more money off of the safety off of the backs of the residents. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Teresa Kozar. Kozak. I apologize. I couldn't read the last letter.
Actually, I wasn't going to speak today, but after I heard and saw some of the statistics, I thought, yeah, just the fact that we already have 46 sites that sell alcohol, I don't feel like we need to have another site to sell alcohol. We could be a Coachella, like you said. And I also wanted to call your attention to that, what Robert Torres said. I know it's a lot to go through. And you had a question about where it came from. And it's pretty explicit. One of the studies, and if you read it, it's pretty annotated, and it's a study from the LA County Office of Public Health. And it says the greater amount of retail alcohol sales in a community, the greater the health problems of that community. That's pretty explicit. The other one is from the Department of Justice. And it mainly speaks to selling alcohol to young people. And so the fact that you would have where they can get gas and then get alcohol only contributes more to the younger generation drinking more and driving. So I just would like you to consider that and take time to look a little bit more into detail with this. But I think we have enough places in the city that sell alcohol. And he's been up to try several times with our city, and he hasn't been successful. Take a look at it and make your decision.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else who would like to speak who is against? Anyone neutral who would like to speak? All right. Glenn Kennedy.
I'll fill this out later. Okay, Glenn Kennedy, lifelong resident. Yeah. I'm a former planning commissioner, and when this came before us. We went forward with it because we wanted to level the playing field. This ordinance was brought in back in the 70s. And I don't want to name people, but a former mayor had a liquor store, and he killed his competition. And that's why this thing exists, and it still exists to this day. Every city has it. Covina, Baldwin Park, La Puente, Glendora. Everybody has it except West Covina. Okay, we put in conditions. Parking is the number one. Square footage. So not you think that all 20 gas stations are going to qualify? No, not at all. You think that 76 at the corner of Workman and Azusa with the kiosk is going to qualify for this? No, it's only about 4 or 5 gas stations. And so we move forward with it, but there always seems to be a problem. Also, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak? You've already had your opportunity to speak. So, anyone else? All right. Seeing none, Mr. Karimi, if you'd like to come back up for any rebuttal. Any follow-up questions from the commission?
I have a question for him.
Commissioner Becerra?
At your other locations, do you have more criminal activity there than you do at the location?
To be honest with you, if you have an answer that question, I'm not in because I sold it a long time ago. But the thing is, there used to be some of them, I'll give you an example, on the corner of Vincent and San Bernardino Road. There's a gas station. Arco used to be a repair shop. Now it's all market and a gas only. There's no more repair. It totally changed it over to the convenience store. But as far as any changes, I don't have no clue because I don't have they've been changing a few they keep on changing a few hands. I sold them long time ago, and I don't know any difference at all.
Well, long time ago, times have changed definitely, whereas there's a lot more criminal activity these days. You don't have to have a gas station.
They do have
criminal activity these days. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I will open up for discussion by the commission.
Yeah, I was just...
Gutierrez.
Yeah, I was looking at the Tribune. It says West Covina hasn't allowed gas stations to sell alcohol for decades. It's been part of its municipal code since 1977, when the law was first adopted. And so, this has been an issue for many years, and I know many voters, specifically in District 1 and District 3, many voters voiced concerns about having more access to alcohol, especially at gas stations that first-time drivers are going to fuel for gas. And they voiced strong concerns. And, this has been an issue for many years, and it's a very controversial issue. And so one of the things that I will like to recommend to the city council to look at is the possibility in the next general election that they put it to the voters, to make the voters in West Covina as a whole, of the over 100,000 residents that live in our city, to finally decide if alcohol should be sold at gas stations. I think that will solve that issue. And if the voters decide that, the voters decide that. If they decide no, and they voice their opinion by their vote of action, then I think the city should respect that and move forward from that. But those are my comments.
Anyone else?
If this was already passed prior and brought, or passed the Planning Commission, and he had to apply again, why wouldn't he just be allowed just to go to City Council and just bypass us?
Maybe Baron can add to it, but the applications have been initiated by different entities. So there have been times when an applicant has submitted for it and times when it's been initiated by the Planning Commission or the City Council themselves. So I don't believe, let me see.
Can I add something? I think because the code does not allow alcohol sales, he cannot possibly go to city councils to ask for the alcohol sale license or to get it approved. So the code amendment has to be changed in order for him to request for a conditional use permit to operate operate and have alcohol sales.
So if we approve it, it would change the code.
No, it still goes to the city council.
City
Council.
Okay, so each one of them, whoever wanted to acquire the license, they would have to come before us and then go to city council. Now, if it's denied here, does it still go to city council or is it, or?
Only if appealed.
Appeal.
If appealed, okay.
Any other questions?
One question that I have, taking in consideration the number of times that this matter has come before the city, at any time, did the city provide how many vehicle-related accidents where alcohol were involved actually happened in the city of Covina within the last 7 years?
If I may, that information was not figures of how many accidents were not provided, but in 2019, a memo from the former police chief Mark Taylor was provided to the planning commission and was also included in the city council agenda. I'll go ahead and post up the memo on the projector. So according to the memo that was provided by the former police chief Mark Taylor, he stated that there is little data to show the correlation of DUI driver accidents to the sales of alcohol at gas stations. And he also had listed cities
Near us.
that have the number of surrounding cities that have off-site licenses, and also off-site licenses attributed to gasoline stations.
Joanne, do we know if any of those off-site licenses that are issued in any of those cities require a conditional use permit, or are they as a matter of right?
Some do require conditional use permit, and some are a matter of right. It's mixed.
Right. Any other questions for staff?
I think it'd be interesting to know in some of the sites where it is permitted if there is increased criminal activity as opposed to Mr. Carmy's location. I mean, if there is, and not to say that we want, it's like saying, okay, well, we have enough criminal activity in this location, let's just keep it there. I'm just saying, do we need to spread it around? Or, if it is what it is right now, we just leave it how it is.
And especially when there's hotels right down the street from that area, too. So it'll be interesting to know if what other stores are open during that time to sell alcohol, and if there has been an increase in violence because of the consumption of alcohol at hotels too, especially when they're down the street from the location.
If I may respond,
Joanne.
From in the past, speaking to the police chief and also going through previous reports for calls for service, that information is very difficult to track and find correlations for, mainly because the addresses of locations for calls of service are the ones that are getting tracked, and those calls for service are not necessarily alcohol related or related to that particular business or location that the call for service includes in the address. Like, for example, if somebody was driving and gets pulled over by the police officer, that address where they're pulled over in front of, that becomes the address of the location where that record was taken. So that information is very difficult to find or track.
If I could also add, there is a process. So there's the city process that would be the conditional use permit. There's also the process through the state's ABC license, and where they have to determine that if there's a new or a business that wants to do alcohol sales, that there's a review and for undue concentration. So if there's already high area or an area of high concentrated ABC license for alcohol sales, then they review that and they consider that in their approval process. If they determine that there's too many liquor stores or liquor licenses in that area, then may come back to the planning commission. And that point, it'd be if it's, I forgot the term, Baron.
Yeah. So the ABC makes that determination if there's an undue concentration, and there's two elements. One is if there's a certain number of alcohol licenses in excess of the population, or if the crime rate is elevated to a certain level. So the ABC determines, there's an undue concentration. They won't issue the permit unless it comes to the commission, and you would have to then issue a certificate of public convenience and necessity approving it anyways. That's regardless of whether a CUP is required locally or whether it's permitted use locally. So that will always be the case.
Mr. City Attorney, if I may, a natural follow-up on that would be, how many times has something like that come back to this commission?
Well, it wouldn't have come here because right now, at least not for gas stations, because you don't permit it at all.
Right.
So the ABC
As
wouldn't.
a general proposition, have we ever had anything like that in front of planning?
If I may, no. Mainly because off sale of alcohol does not require a conditional use permit. It requires an administrative use permit, and the city does do public notification, and if a hearing is requested, then it would go to the planning commission, but we have not received a request for that. The latest alcohol issue that went to the planning commission, other than restaurants, was the grocery store off of Garvey and Citrus, but that only went to the planning commission because it included alcohol tasting, which requires a conditional use permit. So the sales of alcohol for off-site consumption, it's just done administratively currently, and the sale, I guess, but if it involves alcohol tasting, then it would be a CUP.
What I can tell you, years ago I worked for the city of Covina in their planning department. Based on the size of their city and based on the number of establishments in their population, based on census tracts, anytime someone did want to sell alcohol in relations to a service station, it automatically required the needs and necessity. There was an over-concentration. And so ABC does have very strict conditions that have to be met. But the difference between Covina and West Covina, Covina actually went to the step of allowing service stations to sell. Okay? But I can tell you, based on the size of that city, and based on their population, anytime someone applies, there are additional findings that have to be made, and ABC will red flag that.
Okay, so just so we're clear, the grocery store location that was previously approved by this commission, that was not coming to us due to ABC saying that there's an undue concentration. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
It was
that I believe is a different census tract from the grocery store, the Sprouts and the Bevmo and all the locations within the Eastland Center. That's a different census tract, so it wouldn't affect the undue concentration.
Got it. Okay. All right. Any further questions for staff or discussion?
I'll just say that again, because there is a tax tax component on this, that the city can generate money and funds, that I think the best option eventually will be for the city council to ask the voters of West Covina to either approve or deny the general sale of alcohol at our service stations based upon the many voters I've spoken to. But yeah, that's my comment.
Well, I would also like to know if all this additional funds that would be generated for the city, where would those be applied to?
General fund?
That would be sales tax, and so it'd go towards our general fund. So it'd be like if you go into the convenience store to buy a hot dog or a Slurpee, that sales tax, just like the beer, would come to the city's general fund.
And for those
unless it was earmarked.
Yeah, it's just general sales tax, just like any other item. If you go to the store and buy toothpaste,
if you go to Bevmo and buy,
unless the city council voted to earmark it for something else, to a different fund, right? Like, for example, if they wanted to say any funding from alcohol sales should go back to the police department, or should go back to the fire department, or should go back to funding of parks, they could do that, right?
Right, that's what my question is. So how do we, say, okay, this is going to benefit, what is the benefit of it for the community? How do we tell the residents this is why we approved it?
so it'd be a general fund revenue, just like any other sales tax in the community. If you want to earmark it, I'm not sure if that's a vote of the council or, yeah.
It would. The council could earmark it anytime the budget came forward to them if they wanted to. But it is general fund revenue, which means they can earmark it for anything they choose.
And you can also ask the voters the same question too. If they voted yes, should the funding go to whatever cause, whatever initiative was brought in front of them?
All right. Any further discussion? I did have a question for staff, real quick, with regard to the proposed code amendment. There was a mention in the public hearing that there is a minimum square footage requirement for this particular code amendment. Is based upon what I read, it looks like that has been removed. Is that correct?
We apologize. So the staff report meant to indicate that the 2,000 square foot minimum was a previous condition under a previous proposed ordinance, and it's not included in this one.
Right. So there's no minimum square footage requirement in this proposal.
There is no minimum square footage required in this proposal. When the previous code amendment went to the city council, it was stricken out during the discussion, and so when Mr. Karimi included it in this letter, it wasn't included in his request, so it was not included in the draft. However, if it is the planning commission's desire to include a minimum square footage, then that would be included in the recommendation. So before it was minimum 2,000 square feet.
Got it. All right. Anyone have a motion? Any further discussion? All right. Well, I'll give my 2 cents, and if somebody wants to shoot me down, that's fine. So I'll say this: as far as this code amendment is concerned, look, obviously, I do have some concerns about the potential for increased criminal activity, primarily due to the fact that the state of California is not particularly serious about enforcement of things like drinking in public or other minor offenses. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the situation that we live in. If this was a few years ago, I would unequivocally vote yes on this. Unequivocally. My problem with it is I don't necessarily see a mechanism by which we can ensure that residents' interests are protected, particularly on the public safety side. Obviously, and I will say this, the notion that this is going to increase DUIs or something like that, I think that that's a spurious argument. It doesn't have really any merit whatsoever, because primarily people are drinking at home, driving, or alternatively, they're going to a restaurant and drinking too much, or going to a bar and drinking too much. They're not going to a gas station and drinking too much. The issue I see is, how would we tailor something like this in a manner that would be acceptable? And I think this is one of the things that's unfortunate, because our charter as a planning commission is planning. We're not the Public Safety Commission, and so we have to be mindful of that. So one of the things I would say is, although I see the merit of this, I think the City Council would be the proper venue to address the public safety issues, particularly public safety issues with regard to how do we determine if there is an increase in crime related to a specific location. Now, Mr. Karimi's location may not be of particular concern, but there's 20 other gas stations in West Covina, and not all of them are in as good of an area from the perspective of crime. So perhaps his location is good, perhaps another location would not work. And so I would say, if we are to approve something like this, I would like to see conditions that have ongoing studies on what we're looking at as far as increase in criminal activity, and those can be grounds for revocation of a CUP approval. But I do see there would be merit in granting the opportunity for service stations to try it, and then we see what happens. And it can be a yearly review scenario where if it's not an issue, well, obviously the City Council has all of the tools at its disposal to make those determinations and remove certain conditions, particularly if a location is always in good standing, we have no increases in criminal activity in the area, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be something that I could conceivably get behind as far as approving this code amendment and making a recommendation to City Council for its approval. But I would want to see that we have a mechanism by which we're getting that data, and we're getting it on an annual basis, and that staff is not overwhelmed to the point of absurdity trying to parse through every new ordinance that is crafted that has some additional administrative time attached to it. And I think that's the big problem. If we had a situation where somebody who was cited for being drunk in public was taken away, had to pay or had to face the consequences, being a drunk tank or something like that before they're ultimately released, and then we see a prosecution and consequences for that, that would be a totally different scenario than what we have right now. if Mr. Karimi at his location called the police, somebody's drinking in public on his location, okay, police would go out, cite and release. There'd be no prosecution whatsoever. There probably wouldn't even be a citation. And so ultimately the person would be removed, and then they could walk back into the store and they could buy whatever they want. I mean, that's the problem with the reality of this situation. So we have to be very careful in terms of what we do. Obviously, it's not as big of an issue at a restaurant. It's not as big of an issue at larger retail establishments because, honestly, people are lazy, okay? I hate to say it, but it's a lot easier to walk into a convenience store, swipe something, and walk out. It just is. If you're making those types of decisions where you're not abiding by the law, you're not going to go out of your way to, make it more difficult on yourself because some security guard at a larger retail establishment is going to harass you. It just doesn't make any sense. So that would be what I would propose. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they'd like to say, but those are my thoughts, and I'll yield to the rest of you.
Well, I like to add the fact that we're at the planning commissions. We are really working on land use, how we can make the community better, whether it's to land use to allow the alcohol sales in the gas stations or not. But we're really focused on land use. And again, I want to echo Mr. Lewis' comment is that even though we're not policing the criminal activities or lack of criminal activities, we still have to be mindful about what are being approved and how it's going to affect the community in the future. And if our decisions will impact negatively or positively, I mean, obviously some of the positive impact would be the increase in sales tax. However, will that offset the negative impact? Or will there be a negative impact in the community as well? And my biggest concerns is that this particular code amendment, if we were to change it, it mainly affect the upper northwest corner of our city. And that is very concerning. Yes, it does affect the entire city, but because of the fact that the general, somehow, majority of our gas stations are concentrated in that area. So that sections of our town will be majorly affected. And again, even though we pass or make recommendations to our city council, it doesn't mean that laws, criminals, or what have you, is going to change how it's going to impact in the future as well. So I am, number one, is concerned the impact in terms of the fact that it is heavily concentrated in one section of town. And two, gas station, it is a convenience. You can say it's a convenience store, but it also entices certain people to go there. And I'm not sure how we can even police. I mean, if I were to have a homeless guy in front of my house, I'm not even sure how to remove him, even with the police involved. Can they even help? And if the police cannot help, then how can even a gas station owner, will they even make the call to even have a record that they say that, hey, look, this is an issue for the gas stations? And if you are sort of like, if your licenses are being monitored, whether you had a criminal activity, will you be enticing yourself to even call the police? Obviously, whoever is causing the trouble will not make the phone call to call themselves that, hey, I'm a drunken guy here. So there are two impacts, and I'm not seeing how we're going to resolve that issues. On the one hand, the owner of the gas station may not call because his license might be impacted or being taken away. And then the trouble guy is probably not going to call on himself neither. So we had all these problems, but we're not going to know about it. So I'm not sure how we're going to handle this, but are we opening up a problem, potential problems, possibly in the future for our residents? I mean, I understand that it is for the convenience of our residents as well as neighboring cities, but also how much is that convenience will cause problems for our current resident as well.
Right. I mean, I'm wholeheartedly for business owners to prosper in our city, and thank you so much for being such a wonderful business owner and contributor to the city as well. You mentioned 43 years business owner, and with 3 incidents. That would probably change once you have it, and that is your choice to take on that responsibility or liability. But if it affects residents, then that changes everything. And I particularly don't have enough information to make a decision. I would have to, but that's, I mean, well, I guess we'll leave that for discussion for the commission.
Yeah, and I agree with both Commissioner Becerra and Commissioner Becerra and Commissioner Hang, that these are issues that are left unanswered, and just like nightclubs, they may not be enticed to call the police if someone's outside their premises drunk or causing a public nuisance. And I think this is really an issue that if it gets appealed to the city council, hopefully city staff could look into this for the city council, which is how much would it cost to put this part of a general election. And my understanding is, because there's going to be already an election cycle in place for the city of West Covina, that it's more cost efficient to add a measure to the ballot for the voters to decide if something like this should be approved and not approved. But most importantly, the measure should address issues that this commission has voiced their concerns in, because these are real issues, day-to-day issues that have to be addressed, and the voters are going to want to know what enforcement measures are going to be in place, how the money is going to be spent when it comes to the tax collection of this, and shall there be even an increase in an increased tax on alcohol sales that benefits the community. I mean, those are all questions that need to be answered, and if the commission does not vote on it and it gets appealed to the city council, hopefully city staff could answer or have those answers prepared so the city council can be informed on alternative decisions too.
Have we ever been able to just refer to the city council?
Yeah, so my recommendation would be to either approve recommendation for approval or recommendation for denial. And either way, that could be presented. Or you can just vote directly, just pass it on without a recommendation. That would be totally up to the commission.
But this is also a recommendations to whether it's to approve it or recommendations to not approve it. To either approved or not approved will get to city council.
He said recommendation to pass it on as well. We can do that.
You can make a recommendation
with direction. So you could make you could say, I make a motion that this commission does not decide on this item, code amendment number 23-02. And on top of that, I give city staff direction to present to the city council
for approval
additional alternatives to be addressed and presented to the council, which can be what's the policing policy? What is the possibility of being put onto a general election? How much would that cost? So you could really elaborate on a referral to.
Yeah, as long as you make a recommendation, it'll go to the council. And you can add anything you want to that.
Yep. So in that case...
Does anyone want to make a motion currently?
I will make a motion that am I allowed to personally say what I believe and so forth? Okay, so I do not support this, but I don't believe it is. I believe this is a question for the city council to answer, and I believe that if it was not approved today, it will have automatically been appealed by either the applicant or someone from the community. And so I think it's important that we refer this to the city council, but we put instructions for city staff to also present additional details to the council that this commission has addressed of concerns, so city staff can be prepared to share those studies and reports to the council. So I would like to make a motion that this commission does not take a vote stance on Code Amendment number 23-02, and that the commission's comments, which could be repeated by the commission members of the concerns they had, that this be referred to the city council for a decision making, and that on my part, that I would like city staff to present to the city council information in regards to the option to put an item like this onto a general election, and on the cost, how much it will cost, and so forth. And I will then, if my fellow commissioners, if we get a second, that if we could input my fellow commissioners' comments that they want to give direction to the city council as well, what staff could also present to the council as a whole.
So Vice Chair, actually, I need to clarify. The commission should take a position because there are certain findings in the resolution, like related to CEQA or finding that a conformity with the general plan, which are required to move it along. But whether that's a recommendation to deny or a recommendation to approve, to move it forward, we would want a recommendation either way.
Then it's not a referral, then you're asking us to make a decision. So in that case, I take back my motion.
What happened to that?
Yeah, as I read through the resolution, I realized you do have to make findings to move it along. So
Would it be of any additional expense for Mr. Creamy to appeal it, or could this just go before the council? I don't want to cost him any additional expense.
For an appeal, there is an additional expense. It's over, I believe, at $1,000.
What's the process if he wanted to ask for a waiver for that fee?
There's no waiver.
There would not be a waiver process.
No waiver.
Okay.
Even though he's already applied for this prior?
No, there would not be a waiver.
Yeah,
the municipal code outlines the process for a zoning code amendment. But now the difference is if he gets to council, and if council were to approve his appeal, then there may be a situation where he may receive back his appeal money. But it depends on how this city has identified that in their municipal code.
So what happens if, let's just say we vote no, and to refer it, we refer it to the council, then the fee, right?
no, because it's a recommendation either way.
Yeah, and that's what they're asking us to make was a recommendation.
So hold on for 1 second. Regarding the fee that we was just talking about earlier, the $1,500, tonight, whether we, or this evening, whether we approved or not approved this code amendment changes, either way, this will get passed onward toward the city council.
Correct.
So our applicant do not have to pay a fee either way.
I'm sorry. Then it stops. Yeah, if you just deny the request, then it just stops here and he would have to appeal and pay a fee. But the request is for you to make a recommendation to the council. Mm-hmm. So
let's make a recommendation.
And that can be a recommendation to approve or a recommendation to deny.
And refer it to council.
So then we're saying we want to refer it. So now it's no longer an applicant's
Vice Chair Gutierrez, by referral, I think our city attorney clarified.
Yeah, denial or approval. So, so for example, like right now, what I'm going to do, I make a motion. Oh, hold on. Let me get my wording. I make a motion to deny Code Amendment number 23-02 with the secret exemption type, and also to refer the matter to the City Council for final decision, and for city staff to explore comments that the commission has and present it to the City Council for further finding. And that's my motion.
So, again, I just want to clarify, referring it to the council, so that it would be a motion to recommend denial to the council, is what we're...
Okay, yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
With direction or request to consider...
Yeah. So I don't want, because the commission has they have all made important comments, so I think I don't want this to get lost and the council never be presented the facts that the commission members have presented about policing and public policy and whatever the concerns they have. So in this case, I will make a recommendation, again, Code Amendment number 23-02 to the City Council to deny this application, to deny this Code Amendment with this secret exemption type, and to ask city staff to explore, to present to the City Council alternative options for their consideration, such as the expense to put it on a general election and have the voters of West Covina decide. And then I would also like to input the comments that my fellow commissioners have, which they can add to the motion. And then I guess if we get a second.
So I have a point of clarification. So are we saying that the proposed action is not exempt from CEQA as a result of this recommended denial? Is that what you're saying? Or because I think we do have to make that finding, if I'm right, Mr. City Attorney.
Yeah, so to clarify that, the either action I would advise would be exempt from CEQA, so that would be included in the motion.
So a recommendation of denial with exemption of the CEQA
is exempt from CEQA based on the same grounds as in the resolution.
Yeah, CEQA exemption. Okay, yeah, perfect. So that's what my motion was, and then
so that was a first, and you also, I think you asked for input from your commissioners regarding what topics to be presented to the council. I believe, if I could just suggest, I think what I've heard the commission discuss was sales tax revenue impact, crime impact. Were there any other topics?
Putting the costs associated with putting it on a general election ballot.
Having it to the ballot.
And anything else the commission had.
So right now that's included. Those three topics are included in the in the motion as direction to staff to present to the council. So at this time, Chair, it would be appropriate to see if there's a second.
So we have a motion by Vice Chair Gutierrez. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Gutierrez.
Is there any further discussion before we go to roll call?
And I'll just say, I just want to make sure, does my commission members have any other input to add to the list the city attorney just stated?
I will say this. From my perspective, I think on the land use issues, I don't think that we should be recommending denial. I think that would be inappropriate here. I think that our issues are outside of the issue of land use, and I understand people might be concerned about sales tax, but I think the most salient concern really on this is going to be the impact to people's daily lives. It's very much an issue of just general public welfare, and so I think that what we should be doing is we should be saying, okay, if there are any changes to this amendment this code amendment should have prospective changes, and we should direct that City Council investigate any prospective changes to this and the CUP process, such that it specifically addresses those general concerns. For example, I think that it's not really an issue to have this code amendment go through, particularly if the CUP process has protections baked in. So, for example, if we are able to obtain relevant data on crime statistics in the immediate vicinity of a service station that applies for a CUP, and we find that that's inappropriate, that's where we should put in the standards that the City Council can adopt. I don't think it makes sense to be so nebulous and be so concerned about not making a decision and just punting it to City Council, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to make land use decisions and recommendations to City Council. So I understand the desire to avoid making a decision that appears controversial, but I don't think that this particular aspect of things is all that controversial. I think the issue is, what are the standards to be on approval of a conditional use permit? That's really what the issue is. And if our concerns are, hey, this area is over-concentrated and we're seeing a spike in crime, for example, in the northwestern quadrant of the city, at that point in time, we say, these are the grounds for our denial of the CUP, or these are the grounds for the cancellation of the CUP as a result of whatever's going on in that area. So I think what we should do is we should state to the City Council that, yes, this is appropriate, but the CUP process needs to have some legs on it, and city staff needs to be in a position where they have all of the data that comes to us when we ultimately have to make a decision on a CUP to approve or deny. I think that's really how this should work, because I don't think that there is in the record going back to the 70s anything that supports this general blanket denial. There isn't. And that's the problem with it. It is capricious in that regard. So we should be mindful of that. And if for example, there is some upswell in the city where there needs to be a blanket prohibition, well, the people have their ability to put measures on the ballot. But I don't think that this is an issue that is such a major problem that it needs to be put on the ballot. I respect that opinion, but
I'm not ordering it to be put on a ballot. What I'm saying is, I'm asking city staff to have the answer for City Council.
Sure.
Because right now they don't have that, so they need time to research that. So I want them to have that as an answer for the council if the council wants to decide that. So I'm not saying that they're the council, which is we don't have authority to tell the council what to do, but we do have the opportunity to give direction, which my motion does. The only difference from this will be that if you're saying I should be recommending a yes to this application, which I am not for. We could add your comments about what you just stated about the structure and stuff like that as part of the direction given to the council. I think that's important.
If we're recommending to deny it, I don't really understand what the purpose would be for including that. And so that's my only issue with it.
Because the commission raised concerns about having the applicant pay a $1,500 application fee. So I found an alternative to get technically that fee waived by having the commission refer it to the council. Now, if we're going to charge the applicant the $1,500 fee, then I'm more than happy to deny it as is. But
In order to refer it, we would have to approve it.
So obviously we have a motion in a second. I'll make a counter motion that we approve the code amendment subject to some very specific conditions. One, the 2,000 square foot requirement for the location is reinstated. Okay, the next aspect of things that needs to be dealt with is in recommending this for approval, we are doing so on the basis that the city council and future planning commissions are able to obtain relevant criminal statistics in the area surrounding any proposed site for this during the CUP process, such that we can understand what the starting point is, and during the life of the conditional use permit, we can understand and see and have reports come back showing any increases or decreases in the area with regard to criminal activity, such that the CUP can either be revoked or continued on without further interruption. And I think that's really the essence of this. And I would certainly be open to having additional public nuisance concerns to the extent that those are part of the conditional use permit process, and we have the ability to measure those in a non-arbitrary manner, which I believe would be the key in terms of how we make a decision on the CUP process. It can't just be, well, I saw somebody, in the area one time and I don't have any data on that. I think we should see data come to us such that moves it along. And that would be my motion. And the council can do with it what they want. Ultimately, we're a board that recommends changes. If the council is unable to get that information and it becomes such an administrative nightmare, then frankly, I think the council would be well within their rights to deny it.
And I'll just say as a public comment that the majority of voters I've spoken to in District 1 and District 3 and the various voters I've spoken to throughout the city of West Covina are strongly against this initiative, and that we shouldn't go against the voters of West Covina. And I think that this is a subject out of our hands and should be given to the council. So.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Gutierrez and a second by Commissioner Hang. We have my motion. Do we have a second on that? Seeing none, it seems to die without a second. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Gutierrez and a second by Commissioner Hang. Elena, roll call, please.
And I'll just say I want to make sure in my motion, if Commissioner Hang's okay with her second too, that we add Commissioner Lewis's comments as also part of the direction, so research could be done for the council on the topics that he addressed.
So to clarify, Chair Gutierrez, I believe Vice Chair Gutierrez, Chair Lewis, you mentioned both requiring a 2,000 square foot minimum and having the relevant crime statistics to better understand the starting point and during the life of the CUP, and including a way to measure that information. Correct? So you would like to
I'll
add
say
both of those
regarding
items
the square feet. What was the square feet part?
to require 2,000 square foot minimum for alcohol sales.
No, I would say that I think a realistic approach for the council will probably be to see that approach and other approaches that are similar in other cities. To be broaden the research on that topic.
I'm sorry, we can clarify that.
So, Commissioner Lewis indicated. Can you confirm?
You wanted to make a minimum 2,000 square foot requirement for gas stations, convenience stores to be able to do off sale alcohol.
So because I'm giving research or for since we're giving my motion is to give research. I'll say let's present that research that he indicated on the square footage, but also present alternative options for the council too that other cities are using. So it's not just that one option.
So what other cities are doing in regards to if they have a minimum square footage?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think the best options, the easy option will probably be if the maybe city staff could contact ABC. And I know that could probably easily happen even if you contact one of the senator or assemblywoman's office to initiate that meeting.
And then the other item that Chair Lewis indicated was the relevant crime statistics. Is that also being added to the motion? Okay.
I think that's important. If Commissioner Haynes okay with it.
I'm okay with that, but the 200 square foot and the criminal report.
Okay. So then we have a motion by Vice Chair Gutierrez, seconded by Commissioner Hang, recommending to the City Council to deny Resolution 23-6126, approving the CEQA exemption, and then presenting additional options for Council to consider. And I'm just going to list them off. Option to put the item to the general election and what that cost would be to include it on the ballot. Crime impacts, sales tax information, the economic impacts of allowing this, research on the 2,000 square foot minimum, convenience store size and what other cities are doing, and then the relevant crime statistics. So Commissioner Hing?
Yes, I'm okay with it.
Okay. Oh, now I'm taking the vote. Sorry.
Oh, aye.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Becerra?
Oh, abstain.
Okay. Vice Chair Gutierrez?
Aye.
And then Chair Lewis?
No.
So motion does not pass.
So I'll make a motion to deny the application as a whole.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Gutierrez. Do we have a second?
But that would cause him to have the $1,500 fee, correct? So if we don't decide, doesn't it automatically go to City Council?
If you deny the application without a recommendation, it dies here. And then the applicant can choose to appeal it if they want.
Okay, just to be clear, so what is the best way for it just to go to City Council without any additional expense for him?
Make a recommendation.
So we got 2 votes.
Okay, so if I was to go ahead and say yes, then it would go straight to City Council with no cost. Okay, so then I will change mine to aye.
I believe that we'd have a point of order issue on that. Where you would need a motion.
So I'll make a motion to for reconsideration. If Paulina could please restate my motion that she has down in writing.
I do.
And
it's
take
very helpful.
a revote and see if there's a second.
Just to confirm the point of clarification or point of order, the motion for reconsideration has to come from one of the majority who was deciding to choose. So it would actually need to come from Commissioner Becerra. So if I understand right, you want to make a motion for reconsideration, Commissioner Becerra, because you want to reconsider your vote, correct?
Yes.
And then is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Now roll call.
That would requires a vote to reconsider.
Okay.
And
then we'll bring him back, I guess.
So the vote is now to reconsider to approve. So again, this vote would be whether you are making the recommendation to approve.
No,
she wants to
reconsider.
reverse.
a vote.
She's calling her vote and changing her vote.
And you're reconsidering your vote on the motion, which was previously stated, which is a motion to recommend denial with all the additional.
Correct.
Okay. And there was a second on that. So now the vote is again on the recommendation for denial. So it's the same motion as before.
With the wording. You want to read it?
The wording.
Point of order and point of clarification here, though. I believe you'd have to have a motion for reconsideration. Then you would have to have a subsequent motion again to hear what the original motion was. So there'd have to be a reconsideration motion to allow a revote on the prior motion.
Okay, and the chair makes the call on this, so that's what we'll do. So this is purely a motion for whether to reconsider the vote.
To allow for reconsideration.
Yes, to allow for reconsideration.
All right.
Well, there's no rule against it, but okay, go ahead.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Becerra, seconded by Vice Chair Gutierrez to reconsider the vote.
So we roll
Prior
call.
motion. Roll call.
Commissioner Hing,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
No.
Commissioner Becerra,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gutierrez,
Aye.
and Chair Lewis.
No.
So
Motion passes 3-2.
So now I'll make a motion to bring back my original motion. And if we have a second for that.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair Gutierrez, seconded by Commissioner Hang, on the original motion, which already went down on a 2-1 vote. Paulina, roll call, please. And actually,
Well, can you clarify
I apologize. If you can, please read the title of the proposed code amendment and then roll call.
So the motion is to recommend to the City Council to deny Resolution 23-6126, approving the CEQA exemption, and then presenting additional options for Council, including the option to put it on the general election and the cost of putting it on the ballot, the crime impacts, economic impacts, including sales tax, and then research on the 2,000 square foot minimum size for the convenience store and what other cities are doing, and then the relevant crime statistics. So, Commissioner Hing?
Aye.
Hold on, sorry, point of order. It's not to deny the resolution. The resolution is the recommendation, so it's to recommend denial.
Sorry.
Because the resolution incorporates general plan conformity findings and CEQA, which we need to include. So the motion on the table would be to recommend denial to the City Council of Code Amendment number 23-02, Code Amendment related to beer and wine sales at service stations, with the previously stated items to be presented to the Council.
Correct. That's what I motion on, yeah. And that was second on, so I guess now roll call.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Gutierrez, Vice Chair Gutierrez, seconded by Commissioner Hang. Roll call, Paulina, please.
Commissioner Hing?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
No.
Commissioner Becerra?
I'm sorry, I just want to confirm that this isn't any additional expense. We've already asked enough of his time and just don't want to cost him any more money.
Correct.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gutierrez.
Aye.
And Chair Lewis.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so moving on. This action is final unless appealed to the City Council within 10 days. Let's move on to item number 3, which is the Community Development Director's Report. Paulina, do you have any items on this?
Hi, good evening again. Just a couple. We are now in April, and we've kicked off our budget season for the city. So we are we'll be hosting a couple community budget workshops, and the first one is scheduled for tomorrow, 6 p.m., April 26th, here in the council chambers. So everyone is invited to attend. There will be one later in May. So. And all of that information is on our website. So if people do want to partake in those budget workshops, they are available on the website. And that's it.
When is the second one? May?
Let me pull that up for you. Hold on 1 minute.
What time is tomorrow? 6?
6 p.m.
What's tomorrow?
Budget workshop. Good evening.
It's okay. I guess I could.
I can get you that information.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, West Covina is going to be hosting we're bringing back our Small Business Week events here. So we're kicking them off on Wednesday, May 3rd at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. It's going to be a presentation from the Small Business Administration and a seminar with our Small Business Development Center in Laverne. And it's all about small business credit. So that's the workshop that day. And there's going to be an expo. So we're going to have resources from SBA and SBDC if small businesses want to attend. And then on Thursday, May 4th at 5:30, we're having a small Business Week mixer at Temple Bar at Grand Creek Plaza. So everyone's invited to attend. And the other community, and then the second community budget workshop is Monday, May 1st, 6 p.m., and it's going to be at the Cameron Park Community Center.
Are those events, are they in the folder, or can we get those emailed?
We will forward that to you guys.
Any other items on number 3?
Nope, that's it for me. Thank you.
And moving on to item number 4, Paulina, you have any actions from the council to report?
At the last city council meeting, the city council did approve moving or extending the moratorium on the drive-throughs. So it is going to be extended for an additional 10 months and 15 days. That's it for me this evening. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, Chair, if I may,
yes.
We do not have any Planning Commission agenda items for the first Planning Commission meeting in May. So that meeting would be canceled due to lack of items.
All right. Well, thank you. Since there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:04 p.m. Thank you.